How's it going, lads? It's the new kid on the block, Victory Flare. So over the past few months, I've been testing one specific deck way more than others, and these birds have taken up so much of my headspace that I can no longer escape them. I've been seeing several videos and guides going around that range from kinda wrong to blatantly incorrect. And with Battle of Chaos coming out and elevating this deck as much as it does, I wanted to change that. I'm going to start off assuming that you know the basics of the deck, seeing as how it's been legal since October, and it isn't exactly a deep combo deck. So this video is going to be more focused on finer plays and interactions, things like doing X instead of Y or sequencing cards efficiently. Some of these may sound like a bit of a reach, but there's so many different avenues and variations of doing it that they'll come up a lot more often than you think. This is the list I've been working with as of late, but as always, things are subject to alteration. But before I ramble on too much, let's get into some of these. So the first one I really want to go over is essentially a hand that amounts to having both Rabina and Eagle in a hand, as well as either Empin or Apex Avian. So what's nice about being able to do this is we're going to go Rabina. We already have Eaglin. So in a vacuum here, we add Toucan. If we had any way of putting literally any card in grave, Stritch is better here, but for the sake of just showcasing this, we're going to go with Toucan. We're going to summon Eaglin, and he's going to add whichever big bird we're missing. So if we have Empin, we'll add Avian, or if we open the Avian, we'll get Empin. We're going to summon the Empin here, and he's going to get Dreaming Town. We're going to also activate Eaglin, just to get that back in hand. And once this resolves, we're going to go ahead, grab that Dreaming Town. We're going to summon the Toucan. Primarily, this is to have an extra monster on board, because we actually want to summon this Avian. So we're going to just go ahead, summon the Avian, tributing Empin and Toucan. So what does this do for us? What this does is we're going to have Avian on board early, going into our opponent's turn. This is going to be just an additional layer of interruption. Avian's just a really good Omni-Negate. We have Dreaming Town, which we searched off of Empin. And what this means is that Empin is also in grave. So what this allows us to do is once we summon Rabina using this Dreaming Town, we can get Stritch, banish Empin, and then use Toucan to add back Empin and start looping this same Empin to just accrue more and more advantage. And this is even better if we end up using the Avian Negate before we have to flip Dreaming Town, because now we're getting double the use out of Avian, making this just a really good all-around play. I find myself doing this quite a lot, so it's just an important one to know. A lot of people are searching Barrier Statue instead of the extra name here, and all you're ending on is Empin and a Barrier Statue and no real protection for that Barrier Statue, so that board gets outed really easily, and I feel like this is just a lot better. So another set of cards that I kind of want to touch base on is the kind of options you have when you have Map and Toucan and you already have some way of accessing a card like Rabina. Because normally your play when you have these cards would be Map, Reveal Toucan, and then you're going to add the Rabina because you kind of need that to get most of your engine into play. But if you already have the Rabina, you have a few different options as to things you can send. One option you have is to send Empin, and that'll get you similar board to what we just showcased in the previous clip, where you add back Empin here, you're going to summon Rabina, that'll get Eaglin, which we'll do right here. Eaglin is going to summon and add Avian, and you can kind of see where this goes. We'll end up with the same type of end board we had before, which is just deceptively decent, because you just have two Avian uses, you have another Empin summon, being able to use Rabina to search Stritch and get that loop going. So generally, this is a good option for Toucan to go ahead and add back off of Map. The other option you have is, instead of doing this, you can start sending cards like Unknown Wind, which is just a really good card in the grind game. So because you already have Rabina, you don't really need to worry about that. This won't be putting Empin in grave like the previous clip, but what this will do is this will give us early access to unexplored winds, which once we start looping Empin and summoning more things like that, we'll get a lot of extra use out of this because it makes summoning Empin and Apex Avian a lot more economical, and it allows us to also out cards at the same time while we're doing all of those things. So instead of that, we'd be ending on something more akin to this, where we're going to summon Empin, add back the Rabina, just a chain block, get the dreams. So now we have Dreaming Town and Unexplored Winds. We'll just activate that. We can set the Dreaming Town, and then once we start summoning this Rabina, we'll probably add either Avian or a second Empin just to get Empin sort of looping around. And that'll just start us on our way to just outing some of the cards while our opponent's playing, using Dreaming Town as an additional layer of interaction, as well as just being able to accrue more advantage by way of just being more economical with what we're getting here. This next one I want to show you involves a new card from Battle of Chaos, Advent of Adventure. This is a very strong card for the deck, and here it will be allowing us to double up on our Empin searches this turn and set us up for a very aggressive turn 3. What we need is Advent, Rabina, and any other name we can normal. This is going to look pretty familiar starting off. We're going to normal Rabina. We're going to add Eaglin. Then we'll summon Eaglin and grab Empin. Pretty standard stuff here. And this is where things, after we summon Empin, are going to change up a little bit. So we're going to summon this Empin, and we're going to use its effect. We're going to chain Eaglin to get Eaglin back. And then we're going to chain Advent. We're going to banish this Empin, and we're going to add Toucan. So the neat thing here is if we had drawn Toucan, we would add Stritch instead, or vice versa. So this really can just be any name. So next, we're going to grab our first copy of Dreams, and we're going to summon the Stritch. Stritch is going to go ahead and banish this Advent, which is just really good to have banished. That way we have it already good to go when we start trying to loop cards. It'll be halfway there already. We summon Toucan to get back Empin, and we're going to use this now to summon him again. So this is super nice because we'll be summoning Empin again here. Use his effect, and we're going to chain Stritch. We want to have Eaglin and Stritch in our hand at the end of this. We're going to get our second copy of Dreams, and then set and pass. Now this first Dreams is going to be used fairly aggressively. So we're going to flip that up, and we're going to normal the Eaglin. So here we're going to get either Avian or Raiza. In this case, for ease of explanation, we're going to Avian. If we're going to be trying to get rid of cards, it's Raiza. It's really whatever the game state demands. So we're going to get this Avian, and we're going to just summon it over the Empin and the Eaglin. And we're going to get the Eaglin back into hand for next turn. Next big thing we're going to want to do is, this is going to be much later in the turn. We're going to set ourselves up for an aggressive turn 3. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to normal this Rabina, and we're going to use the Toucan in Banish just a chain block. You also have the Avian up here to help protect that. And we're going to add Bird of Perfection here. So this is going to come in towards the end of this play, so bear with me here. We're going to summon Stritch. Stritch is going to banish the Empin. And you can kind of see where we're going with this. We're going to use Toucan again, get the Empin back, and we're going to summon Empin yet another time. So Empin is going to grab a Unknown Wind here, actually. And we're going to get the Stritch. Unknown Wind is really great because it's going to let us be very aggressive next turn. And now we're finally going to summon Bird of Perfection here. So Perfection is going to send Ancestry, and we're going to grab Elborz, which is the Simorgh field spell. So what this card is going to do is it's going to A, reduce the cost of tribute summon monsters next turn, and B, give us an extra normal summon. Functionally acts as another double summon. So both this and Winds are going to allow us to be very aggressive next turn, really make a big push. And if we were able to stuff out a good play here using Avian or Raiza, potentially even multiple times, then this could potentially just end the game, being able to make a push like this. So this is a very strong play that Battle of Chaos has given the deck, and it really goes to show just how much this single set has elevated the deck, just by introducing this card, Bird of Perfection, as well as Advent of Adventure. They're just really good cards for the deck. So this one's going to be a bit different. What I want to showcase here is more going to be like proper use of Raiza. So I've set up a fairly like standard turn one board. I have some cards on the opponent's field just to act as like targets for that. And we're going to kind of go over the sort of things that we can do here. So we can flip one of these Dreaming Towns. I have 2 of them here. And we're going to get the Eagle in, which we would have in our hand from after our turn 1 combo. And we're going to use this to go and grab Raiza the first time. We're going to use it. And we're actually just going to do the normal tribute summon. We don't want to get rid of this Avian. And we're just going to start getting rid of cards like this. Now, one of the things I see a lot is people will focus the second part of this on another card of the opponent's. If that is an option, sometimes you can do that. But you can also use this to put another one of your own cards back on top of the deck. So let's say I can see that I have another Dreaming Town, so I'm going to be able to use Raiza a second time. So if there's another card that I just want to shuffle into my deck, I can do that. So I can put this Ecclesia in, and then this is where I see a lot of people kind of fumble as well. I know that I'm going to be able to summon Raiza another time, so there's no reason why I shouldn't be using its effective bounce itself. I see a lot of people getting greedy and using Raiza to get rid of 2 cards on board and 1 card in grave. There's no reason to do that. The entire sort of benefit to using Raiza in this deck is that you do have the option to just make him infinite like this. So you can, like when the opportunity arises again, maybe further down their play line. Again, these sets are just here for example. You can just summon again, like this Rabina here. And we can just keep fueling our hand, like with Eaglin. Another thing you can do here is search Stritch to just keep things moving. Keep your Empin loop moving. So you can banish Empin and then get the Toucan back. And continue looping Empin like that as well. Something that we kind of glossed over a bit earlier, but it's something you definitely want to continue doing. Because the more times you're summoning Empin, the more access you're getting to just better cards that are going to help you be more aggressive. Things like, for example, your Unknown Wind, which we'll actually search right here. But we can summon this Raiza a second time. And we're just going to summon him over the Toucan and the Empin. And we can put another card back away. We can, the nice thing here is we know, like, okay, this is more than likely the last time we're going to be summoning Empin. Or not Empin, but Raiza. And we can take this Nadir Servant and put it on top of our deck. We can bounce the Raiza again. And then, when our turn comes around, we have guaranteed that we will draw that Nadir Servant. So now we can immediately use this Nadir Servant that we have given ourselves specifically so that we can draw it. And we can start being aggressive with Entis, get the Ecclesia that we just put it back, use this Entis, pop a card. We're not going to use our extra deck anyways, so we can just use this card repeatedly, which is the biggest strength of Raiza, being able to just turn cards like Nadir Servant and Duality, cards like that, and just infinitely recurring cards. So that's something that is, I really see a lot of people dropping the ball on like using Raiza to its fullest extent like that. You can also combine this with cards like Elborz, which I'll discuss a bit further into the video, to really just start like getting rid of so many cards with Raiza, and it just, you snowball a lot of advantage, and you can get really big swings that can let you really just shut down a turn. It's that's probably all of the big things I wanted to showcase. Now let's go and get into some of these smaller discussions that are a bit more niche and hard to showcase. For example, when playing out your turn, you want to space out the banish effects of your birds. Think of them as a resource instead of just adding everything back right away. By keeping 1 to 2 cards banished, you can protect your plays a lot better and make them a lot more useful playing into cards, and it just keeps an extra layer of protection up. You're going to also want to bear in mind that Perfection is going to be really good at protecting effects as well, because he can chain block 2 effects using his on-field effect to search as well. Another big one I want to touch on is how important Stritch and Toucan loops can be. If we were to look at Rabina and Eaglin as a sort of resource generating engine, getting you access to your larger birds and your smaller ones, then Stritch and Toucan are more like a perpetual recycling engine. You want to be able to balance banishing and recurring your own cards with using Stritch as a disruption in graveyard, instead of only using it for one or the other. I find myself in a lot of matchups actually using Stritch on my own cards than I do my opponents, just because it helps me keep what cards that I want to have in circulation moving around. A big card to touch on here is actually Ancestry. It's much more than just a send target for perfection. I demonstrate a lot of this importance earlier, because the point at which he begins to come up is when the game state is much more late stage and complex, but I cannot understate how huge it is for applying pressure using his own effect in conjunction with Raiza, being able to bounce cards and then function as a cost down for Raiza for huge swings and advantage by just getting rid of so many cards that are otherwise entirely unobtainable, making this card incredible for aggressive pushes. Very much in the same vein, Elborz can also be used to reduce the tribute cost of your larger monsters and simply just summon more of them. Both of these cards allow us to really capitalize on turns that we're able to shut out a play much more effectively and end the game that much faster, which is something that definitely is welcome to have more access to. All in all, I think we can safely say this deck has far more to offer than the standard statue pass gameplay that we see elsewhere. Once you step back from the cards here and think, how can I be the aggressor, the deck really starts to shine. There's almost an aspect of moment-to-moment decision-making once you start setting multiple dreams that can really set a good player apart from an alright one, which is something that I really quite enjoy. That should cover the majority of things you need to know for birds. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments, or if you want to talk more about the deck, I also stream on Twitch and have a Discord you can join. Links are going to be in the description. But anyways, thanks for watching, and have a good one.